I want to welcome you to this study in the book of 1 Corinthians. Today we're in 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, verse number 1. The Apostle Paul has given the Corinthians a decision to make. He said, do you want me to come to you with a rod of discipline, or do you want me to come to you with love and in a spirit of gentleness? And now he goes and he begins to deal with a tremendous problem in the church at Corinth. He's dealt with arrogance, and he's going to continue to talk about arrogance. And that's why I believe that arrogance was a gateway, or spiritual pride was a gateway into immorality and other things that were going on in the church. But the Apostle Paul says now in 1 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, verse number 1, it is actually reported that there is immorality among you, and immorality of such a kind as does not exist among the Gentiles, that someone has his father's wife. What's Paul saying? Paul's saying it's actually reported. Now, who did the reporting? Well, if you go back to 1 Corinthians, the 1st chapter, verse number 11, he says this, for I have been informed concerning you, my brother, and by Chloe's people. Who has informed the Apostle Paul? Who's brought this report to the Apostle Paul? It's Chloe's people. Chloe's people. Now who was Chloe? Chloe was a businesswoman. She operated in the church at Ephesus, and she operated in the church of Corinth, or in the city of Corinth, I should say. Chloe was a believer. Now, the Apostle Paul is writing this letter from the city of Ephesus, and he's writing to the city of Corinth. So there's a tie between Paul and Chloe and the city of Ephesus and the city of Corinth. And so it was Chloe's people that brought this report. We don't really know where all the information came from, but we know that the report came through Chloe's people. Now, how many of you realize that in the days of the Apostle Paul, they didn't have the internet. They didn't even have telephones. Can you imagine? They didn't even have telegrams. All they had was tell a woman. No, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, you see, a report came. We don't know who instigated the report, but it came through Chloe's people. They took it on a boat and they brought it over to Ephesus. And Paul has read this report, and it's not a nice report. Now, what was the report? The report is that there's immorality among you. There's immorality among you. What's Paul talking about? What's he addressing? He's addressing immorality. He's addressing pornography. The word immorality is the Greek word porneo. And we get our English word pornography. Now here in this instance, it's not just pornography, it's actually a sexual act. But what Paul is doing is he's taking to task this person who's living in sin. Now notice what he says about this sin, and Paul describes it. He says it's an immorality of such a kind as does not even exist among the Gentiles. Now remember, the Apostle Paul is writing from a very wicked city, the city of Ephesus. All kinds of drug use, all kinds of prostitution, all kinds of immorality. He's writing to the city of Corinth, which is also steeped in all types of sin. But he says, you know what? Not even the Gentiles are sinning like this. It's an immorality that even the Gentiles wouldn't have nothing to do with it. So he says it's an immorality of such a kind as does not exist among the Gentiles. What's Paul doing? He's taking it to an extreme. He said this immorality is so serious and so bad that even a Gentile believer wouldn't be listening to it or doing it. Then he goes on and he tells us what the sin is. That someone has his father's wife. Now, let me just say this to you. We need to understand that at this time in the Roman Empire, it was customary for a man to have more than one wife. I don't believe that he's talking about that this man is having a sexual relationship with his mother or with his stepmother, as some have preferred to say. I believe he's having a sexual relationship with one of his father's many wives. What's going on? This man is having a sexual relationship with a woman who is the wife of his father. Again, this is an atrocity that the Apostle Paul is having a hard time comprehending. But now verse number 2 says this: you have become arrogant. There's that word again, arrogance. Self-conceited, proud, arrogant. You have become arrogant. What was the problem in the church at Corinth? It was their arrogance. But notice what he says, and you have not mourned instead. In other words, Paul is saying that the church at Corinth has become proud of what this man is doing. Instead of mourning, instead of operating in the beginning of what we would call repentance, the Apostle Paul says, instead of mourning, you've become proud of it. You're talking about it. Instead of dealing with it, you're talking about the sin that even the Gentiles. How many of you know the Gentiles are hearing about this and they're going, whoa, maybe I want to join that church at Corinth. They've got more freedom than I've got. You've become arrogant. And again, we see this pride thing, this puffed up. But they're puffed up about the sin of this man. Wow. The Corinthians thought they were being spiritual. They thought it was this great. Instead of grieving, instead of mourning for this sin, the Corinthians thought that this man's sin was a sign of their acceptance, was a sign of how nice they are. Now notice what he says. So, and again in verse number 2, so that the one who had done this deed would be removed from your midst. Now what's he saying? He's saying if you would have grieved, you would have removed this man from your midst. If you would have mourned, you would have removed him. How many of you know that you want to get rid of pain as quickly as you can? He said, instead of mourning, your arrogance has embraced this man. You know, I think there's a message in here as we close for today for the American church. American churches are embracing sin, many of them. And you know what? We need to mourn instead of embracing sin in our arrogance. I'm just going to leave that to you to figure out what I'm talking about. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Join us again tomorrow.